Host. Let me say something that might trigger you a little. Being cheap is not the same thing as being smart with money. In fact, for a lot of people, being cheap is the exact reason they stay broke. And before you get defensive, I'm not talking about budgeting or being responsible. I'm talking about that mindset where you refuse to spend money even when it could help you earn more, grow faster, or live better. Visual. Close-up of someone counting a few dollar bills nervously, then switching to scrolling through social media seeing others succeed. Host. Cheap people focus only on the price. Wealthy people focus on the value. When you're cheap, you ask, how little can I spend? When you're smart with money, you ask, what's the return on this? That difference alone can change your entire financial future. Cheap thinking keeps you stuck in survival mode, always playing defense, never offense. Visual. Split screen. One side showing a person stressing over small expenses, the other showing someone investing in themselves confidently. Host. Here's a harsh truth. Cheap people avoid spending money on things like education, better tools, mentorship, or health. They'll waste hours trying to save $20, but won't invest $100 to learn a skill that could make them thousands. That's not discipline. That's fear disguised as responsibility. Visual. Person skipping an online course because of the price, then later struggling at a low-paying job. Host. Being cheap also costs you time, and time is way more valuable than money. Driving across town to save a few dollars. Fixing things yourself when you're not skilled, wasting hours. Avoiding convenience even when it frees you up to earn more. Poor people trade time for tiny savings. Rich people protect their time like it's gold. Visual. Clock ticking fast, person exhausted, then contrast with someone delegating tasks and focusing on work. Host. And let's talk about income. Cheap people obsess over cutting expenses, but rarely focus on increasing income. You can only cut so much before you hit zero. But your income, that has no limit. Saving pennies won't make you rich. Learning, upgrading, and earning more will. Visual. Expenses shrinking on a chart until they stop, then income graph shooting upward. Host. Now don't misunderstand this. I'm not saying be reckless or waste money to look rich. I'm saying stop being afraid to spend money on things that move you forward. Books, skills, networking, better equipment, your health, your mindset. These aren't costs, they're investments. Visual. Person buying books, taking notes, working on a laptop, going to the gym. Host. Most people stay poor not because they don't make enough, but because they think small. They play not to lose instead of playing to win. They're so scared of spending money that they never give money a chance to come back multiplied. Visual. Person holding money tightly, then opening hands and money turning into opportunities. Host. If you want a different financial life, you need a different relationship with money. Stop asking, how can I save this dollar? And start asking, how can I turn this dollar into 10? That shift alone separates people who struggle forever from people who eventually win. Visual. Dollar bill transforming into a stack of bills. Host. So stop being cheap. Be intentional. Be strategic. Spend where it grows you, cut where it doesn't, and remember, money is a tool. If you're too scared to use it, it'll never work for you. Visual. Confident person walking forward, city skyline ahead, calm and focused. Host. Let's clear something up right now. Being cheap is not a flex. It's not discipline. And it's definitely not a financial strategy. In fact, being cheap is one of the biggest reasons people stay poor for their entire lives. And I know that sounds harsh, but if you're uncomfortable, that's probably because this message is about you. Visual. Person standing in a grocery aisle comparing prices for too long, looking stressed. Host. There's a massive difference between being broke, being careful with money, and being cheap. Broke is temporary. Careful is smart. Cheap is a mindset. Cheap people don't think long-term. They don't think in value. They think in fear. Every dollar feels like it's leaving forever, instead of seeing money as something that can come back multiplied. Visual. Money leaving a wallet slowly, then freezing in midair. Host. Cheap people are obsessed with saving money, but they completely ignore the idea of making more money. They'll drive 20 minutes out of the way to save $5 on gas, but won't spend $50 on a book, a course, or a skill that could change their income forever. That's not smart. That's small thinking. Visual. Map showing a long drive for small savings, then a skipped, buy course, button. Host. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most cheap people don't trust themselves. They don't believe they can turn opportunities into results, so they cling to every dollar like it's their last. That fear keeps them stuck. And the world doesn't reward fear. It rewards action. Visual. Person holding money tightly, knuckles white. Host. Cheap thinking shows up everywhere. You see it when people refuse to invest in their health and then complain about low energy. You see it when people refuse to upgrade their tools and then wonder why their work is slow. You see it when people avoid networking, coaching, or mentorship because it costs too much, but somehow wasting years is acceptable. Visual. Old, broken laptop versus a fast modern setup. Host. Let me say this clearly. The cheapest option is almost always the most expensive in the long run. Cheap shoes wear out faster. Cheap tools break. Cheap shortcuts fail. Cheap thinking leads to expensive mistakes, missed opportunities, and years of regret. Visual. Shoes falling apart, tools breaking, frustrated person. Host. And let's talk about time. Cheap people don't value time properly. They'll spend hours doing something inefficiently just to avoid paying someone else. They'll fix things they don't understand. They'll wait, delay, and hesitate instead of paying for speed, clarity, or convenience. But time is the one thing you can never get back. Visual. Clock spinning fast, person aging slightly. Host. Wealthy people understand something most people never learn. Money is renewable, time is not. That's why rich people happily spend money to save time, but poor people waste time to save money. And that single difference compounds over years into totally different lives. Visual. Split screen. One person rushing and tired, the other calm and focused. Host. Now listen carefully. This doesn't mean you should waste money to look rich. Buying things to impress people is just another trap. That's not confidence, that's insecurity. But refusing to spend money on growth, learning, and improvement. That's self-sabotage. Visual. Person scrolling luxury items versus person studying and working. Host. Cheap people ask, how much does it cost? Smart people ask, what does it return? That question changes everything. Will this skill help me earn more? Will this tool save me time? Will this knowledge open doors? If the answer is yes, the price matters far less than the payoff. Visual. Dollar sign turning into arrows pointing upward. Host. Most people stay stuck because they play defense their entire lives. They're so focused on not losing money that they never give themselves a chance to win. They protect pennies and sacrifice dollars. They avoid risk and guarantee mediocrity. Visual. Person hiding behind a shield labeled safety. Host. Let's be real. You cannot budget your way to wealth. You can budget your way to stability, sure. But wealth comes from growth. And growth requires investment. In skills. In mindset. In health. In relationships. In systems that make your life easier and your income higher. Visual. Plant growing as money is invested into soil. Host. Cheap people also love comfort. They avoid discomfort at all costs, especially financial discomfort. But every level up in life requires temporary discomfort. Spending money on yourself feels uncomfortable when you're not used to it. But staying broke forever should feel way more uncomfortable. Visual. Person hesitating before clicking buy, then later smiling with results. Host. Here's another hard pill to swallow. If spending a small amount of money scares you, it's not because the price is too high. It's because your income is too low. And instead of fixing that, cheap people just shrink their lives smaller and smaller to fit their limitations. Visual. Room shrinking around a person. Host. Think about this. The people who complain the most about prices are usually the same people who never work on increasing their value. They don't build skills. They don't take risks. They don't invest in learning. Then they blame the world for being too expensive. Visual. Person pointing fingers outward. Host. Money flows toward value. Always has. Always will. If you want more money, become more valuable. And becoming more valuable almost always requires spending money first. That's the part cheap people can't accept. Visual. Arrow showing value increasing, money following. Host. Stop trying to save your way out of poverty. Start thinking your way out. Start earning your way out. Start investing your way out. The goal isn't to spend less forever. The goal is to earn so much that small expenses don't control your emotions anymore. Visual. Person calm while expenses appear and disappear. Host. At some point, you have to stop asking permission to grow. You have to stop waiting for the perfect time. You have to stop using money as an excuse. Because deep down, cheap thinking isn't about money. It's about fear of failure.